Hey guys, it's Mike here, and welcome to another video I'm bringing you today in which I'm going to be talking about Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball in general. As we all know, recently there was the rumor that came out that there was another Dragon Ball Z movie coming out soon, which of course has been debunked as of now, as you could find out on Big D's channel at Geekdom 101. But with all this hype and with all these rumors that have been going around for a while, the question arises, will there be another Dragon Ball Z movie, or should there be another Dragon Ball movie in general? And that's basically what I'm going to talk about here today. But before I get into this, I'd like you all to go down below into the comments section and tell me your own thoughts whether or not you think that there should be another movie, and whether or not, maybe you think that it should be replacing Dragon Ball Super and just going forward in a movie thing. And that might be the kind of argument that I'm trying to pose in this video right now. So without further ado, let's get into this. Now, of course, I'm a big movie fan, as you could tell from the content I put on this channel. I often talk about films, so when it came to actually Battle of Gods and then Resurrection F, I was a big fan of the movie format for Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super as it went on to become. But of course, as we all started out, I watched the Dragon Ball series and Dragon Ball Z in the series format, which, was originally intended to be after it was adapted from a manga as opposed to movies. And so with the coming of Dragon Ball Super, of course, I was happy to see a new series, and even though Super has had its hiccups over the course of time, I still like the series format. But that being said, would the series actually be better if instead of continuing to do the series format, they actually decide to just make it episodic movies with one tying into the next film, similar to, say, Star Wars with the original trilogy, instead of having entire sagas, which, could be rushed or drawn out or whatever that is? Toei and Toriyama and the people who make Dragon Ball can come together and can actually create movies, which will just be one movie that sets up maybe the beginning of the arc, another movie which, is the lowest point as trilogies tend to go, and then the third movie, of course, wrapping up it, or, it doesn't necessarily even have to be a trilogy. It could be 4 movies, 5 movies, whatever the saga details, and we would get these once per year. Now, of course, there are pluses and minuses to this possible idea. For example, we would have to wait a year, or even more, just to see the next iteration of this series. And I know a lot of anime fans don't like to wait to see different things. They like the kind of weekly format, and they like no breaks or anything like that, and perhaps it is because of instant gratification in our society nowadays, but honestly, I'm one of the people who does not mind if I have to wait for a long period of time to get something that is very high quality. Look at the anime recently, of course, in One Punch Man. Now, for example, One Punch Man, they decided to do one season, and basically after that they took a break so that they can go forward and wait and, see how the series played out and then develop the second season. But they actually did seasons, which is not something that they actually usually do in Japan for anime. Like the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z anime, they just aired it once a week with some random, events such as holidays or something, which they took a week off, which is of course what they're doing with Dragon Ball Super right now, week after week. But of course, when you do something week after week and you have to meet these really rough deadlines, that causes issues because of the fact that they can't really devote as much time to animating each of the episodes, which in turn causes things to kind of not look as good as films. Also, in order to not rush through everything, or in order to draw things out, they tend to add padding to the episodes. And even in a series like Dragon Ball Super, in which there actually is no filler, because it's not based on a manga, it's basically an anime continuation of the manga, the fact of the matter is they still basically add something that's very akin to filler in their padding in the series. But if they did this with a movie format, they would not have to do any of this because of the fact that they would have a year just to work on a single film at a time. And they would also have much more money to do it because, of course, when you have an entire anime series, first off, the anime series don't tend to have as much money put into it per episode as, say, a movie would, but it's also because of the fact that movies in general are probably going to cost less to make than an entire anime series because of the fact that obviously an entire anime series is going to have that budget spread out across many episodes, whereas a movie, you can put that budget into one episode or into one, fraction of the story in that small film, and basically through that you get to put more money into animation, into, hiring the best teams like, say, Yamamoto's team, and Basically, you get animation that looks like Resurrection F and Battle of Gods compared to Episode 5 of Dragon Ball Super. And you tend to get better music, better fight choreography, and as a matter of fact, when it actually comes to the movies, they tend to make far more actually for the company of Toei than, say, the series would in general, because with the movie, you automatically have to go to the theater and pay money to see that movie, whereas where the series tend to be predicated on merchandise sales and people buying the Blu-rays. Whereas with the movie, you get that on top of the actual sales at the box office. And as we know with Battle of Gods, and especially Resurrection F, both made tons of money comparatively to the actual money they put in. And when this tends to happen, movies tend to get even bigger budgets as they go along because they continue to show that they're successful, and thus we get longer movies, more actual money put into them so the animation looks better, and so on and so forth. So in a lot of ways, you could definitely argue that using movies instead of a series format and creating movies and doing this, once a year would actually be better for Dragon Ball as a whole. And I personally am not someone who has ever really minded waiting an entire year just to see another movie or, another content. Because when you think about it, we waited for many years just to see Battle of Gods. And if we don't count GT, the Japanese and the people who were watching Dragon Ball Z during its original airing waited 18 years just to see Battle of Gods after the end of Dragon Ball Z. And of course, we in America waited very long as well. So when it comes down to it, I don't really think that the wait is going to be that big of a factor when it actually comes to seeing these movies and seeing the new content added to Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball as a franchise. Because when you think about it, after you're done waiting, you would just go back and see it again. You could watch everything in iteration over the course of years. It's not like the entire Dragon Ball franchise was done in a day or was done over a really short period of time. It took many years as well. So I really don't think that in retrospect, when everything is all said and done, the wait is really going to be that big of a factor, and I feel like the overall quality is going to be that much bigger and better as a result of doing it as movies as opposed to a series. Now, this doesn't mean that they should just scrap Super and just, redo that as movies, because that's certainly not what we'd want, considering the fact that we didn't like when they did Battle of Gods and Resurrection F as movies. However, perhaps after this arc, they can continue the franchise again as movies, and just have this General Universe 6 arc being a series. Another issue, of course, with movies tends to be the fact that when they actually make anime movies, they're not generally very long. They tend to make everything 90 minutes, which is why, of course, I suggested the fact that they try and do it over the course of several movies, like a trilogy or quadrilogy or something along those lines. If they're going to continue with more movies, or if they decide to do more movies in the future, we can't continue to see the very close-ended films that we've seen before in the past, before Battle of Gods, or we saw again Resurrection F. We can't have the beginning, middle, and end of the arc happen over the course of 90 minutes. That's just not something that really is feasible at this point in time. It doesn't allow for the best content they could possibly put out, and as we've seen time and time again with film series like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Harry Potter, all that stuff like that, people don't mind watching multiple movies, and they actually prefer it considering just how many sequels come out at this point in time. So basically, in the end, I wouldn't have any problem with there being more movies and for the series actually continue as movies, because I think the overall quality would actually be better if they actually listen to this kind of advice and they actually do it in this kind of format. But I'm not really minding Super right now, and if Super continues to improve like it seemingly has been so far, then I'm not really going to have an issue. Well, my name is Mike, and this has been another video I was bringing you today on Dragon Ball. Let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments section. Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you disagree? And would you actually prefer it being movies, or would you prefer to stay as a series? Let me know down below. Also, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And as I always say, stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
And you better subscribe!